African culture has been a big part of our diversity and inclusion discussion for decades now. And for Belle Niba, she's on a mission and she's dedicated her life as the founder and CEO of African Vibes magazine to celebrating African culture, overcoming the colonial hangover, and building self sufficiency on the continent. She joined me this week to tell me about her journey from Cameroon to the United States, her ventures as a business owner, and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Well, if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program, and we're excited to learn all about your inspiring journey, your business journey, and what's keeping you busy these days. So great to see you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So, Belle, can you tell me about the magazine you started? I know it's intended to celebrate African culture and the diversity of Africa. So, can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yes, so African Vibes is a publication that I started as a way just to shape some of the narrative that's out there about Africa. When I started it, there wasn't much that was uplifting or positive coming out about Africa. Now we have other media outlets that are doing a much better, a very good job in telling the African story. But I started African Vibes to do my part in doing that and to promote and celebrate contemporary African culture.
And how do you think people can celebrate African culture if they have African roots and even if they don't?
That's a great question. So the way to celebrate African culture, you can do it through your style, incorporate themes that are Afrocentric into your style, into your home. Learn about the food. So it's very lifestyle, learn about the music, and just be curious and interested. And you don't have to be Black or African, just in the same way that we embrace Western culture. It's the same way I would like for us to embrace, celebrate, appreciate, and enjoy contemporary African culture.
And tell me, I know that you have strong views on how we view relationships and making positive relationships as it relates to race relations. So, can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so we've been, as Black people in general, regardless of where you are, we've been the underdog for a long time. That does not necessarily mean that every white person is evil just because some white people were perpetrators of the situation we find ourselves in. However, when it comes to race relations, I think that sometimes we take a us versus them or a it's either black or it's white approach when life itself operates in the gray. The gray is where I believe we all need to operate. And what I mean by that is when it comes to race, we first have to start by not waiting or having or accusing other people of not acknowledging us or celebrating our blackness. We have to be the ambassadors of our blackness first and foremost. Secondly, we cannot afford to also alienate other races. We can't say somebody treated me bad, so I'm just going to do the exact same thing to somebody else. We have to instead say we are different. We celebrate who we are. We celebrate who you are if you're different. And when we look at issues of race from the lens of the same lens that I would like for someone to look at me, all Black people are not one person. They have opinions. We may share a skin tone, but we're different people. So all white people are not the same. And if it's from that perspective, then we have to be looking at how can we work together to start seeing each other as we should see each other. That means white people who may have benefited from the status quo where white race was presented as better will need to confront their unconscious biases. Now, some people hate that. They think, oh, I don't have that. You know, I'm a good person. And it has nothing to do with whether you're good or bad. It's about things that have subconsciously been instilled in all of us that we're less than and somebody is better than. In the same token, the Black person has to do the same work to say, how have I suffered by seeing myself either less than or seeing the white person as this always this perpetrator of evil to me. Things are being done to me. So we have some work to do. And to do that, we have to start from the basis of love and kindness. You cannot build a bridge from anger and hate. You can only build a bridge from love and kindness.
And can you tell me, I know that raising children now, especially in the Black community, is more challenging than ever before. And I know that you have strong views on motherhood and the role of mothers during this time. So can you tell me about that?
Yes. So looking at life now from a lens of love, kindness, is as a mother of two young children living in a predominantly white suburb in California. There are challenges that I did not anticipate. I had, for some time, I've been in the US, I'm an African immigrant for over 20 years. And there are things that I have missed, even as a Black person, because I did not have what I'll call the baggage of what African Americans have been struggling with for, hundreds of years in this country. So I come without some of that baggage. And when things happen to me, yes, they were hard to take, but I always tried to make, justify it or make sense of it. But now that I have children, I didn't go to school here to some elementary school in the United States where my parents may have had to address some things that now I have to address for my kids. My daughter, when she was in daycare, she's 8 now, but at the time she was about 3, and another kid was telling her she was not pretty, she was ugly because she was brown. I never anticipated things like that. No, I didn't. At first, I was really worked up and upset about it, but I had to take a step back and look at it as an opportunity for education. So I went to the school, and as that they introduced books and introduced diversity, spoke to the teacher, and it was something new to her as well. She was white. She wasn't familiar with this dynamic that she now had to confront. And we worked together to work through it. I spoke to the other parent, not from a place of how could your kid say it, not from a place of anger, but from a place of we have to help our children be better. And the parents, we worked it out together. But it was my first introduction to the reality that my daughter would have to encounter. And it was just the beginning. She's encountered other situations, but I'm not going to snatch her out of the environment. Instead, I see ourselves as not only ambassadors of our race, and yes, it's a burden on us, but we have a unique opportunity to educate ourselves and educate our children to operate in this paradigm, but to also educate the others so that they can confront their own unconscious biases, their own prejudices that they may not even realize that they have. And in so doing, we all become better because of it. Now, because it's happening to us doesn't mean we don't also hold unconscious biases about other people. So now I'm able to watch myself even closely to see how I interact with other people, because now I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that.
And I know that you're originally from Cameroon, and you obviously have a intriguing story when it comes to coming to America and starting a business. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your personal life and business journey?
Sure. So I left Cameroon as a teenager and I came to the United States with my mother, who had been invited to a program at Harvard. Now, as a teenager, I was not very happy with that arrangement initially because my friends and had left behind. It was hard not knowing anybody, being in a new society. And then at the time we were in Boston, it was difficult. So I came to California a few months later where my oldest sister lived. And coming here, now things about race and all of that were not my day-to-day reality. I didn't grow up worrying about the color of my skin. We had other challenges in Cameroon. Now, Cameroon has its own dynamic and it's all from our colonial heritage, but it wasn't race. So whether it's race or, whether you're from a certain tribe or speak a certain language, these societal hierarchies or structures exist pretty much everywhere. But coming to a different place, I didn't have my challenges from where I was from, gave me the opportunity to start over with a different lens. Now, of course, I encountered different kinds of challenges. I had to struggle to see where was my place. I wasn't African American, so I didn't quite fit in there. I was African, and there were not many Africans. I wasn't white. I didn't fit in there either. And I was an immigrant trying to find my place. So there was struggle there. But one thing that stayed constant was I recognized that I was in a country that, as imperfect as it might be, gave opportunity to people like me that I couldn't find elsewhere. And I would have been foolish not to take it, make the most of it. And that's what I did. I adopted the mindset, which I had kind of adopted as a child, where when something really bad would be happening, I would ask myself, is there a choice I can make right now, or a decision I can make right now, whether I liked the decision or not, that could shift this situation to a different direction? And if there was, then it means I always had a choice in the situation. So what prompted me to go into business was looking at how the narrative about where I was from was going. And I asked myself, at first I was waiting, somebody has to do something about this. Someone with experience had to tell that story. But then it occurred to me that if we keep waiting for other people to solve the problems in front of us, it might never happen. So I asked myself, is there something that I can do to fix this situation? And that something was I needed to go into business, do something about it, start a media company. I had never done anything in media before, but I believed that if I had the will, there would be a way and I could learn. I bet on my ability to learn. And that was my first business in the United States. I've started other businesses. I currently have a digital marketing business as well. But that was my beginning journey into business in the United States.
Fascinating. And I also know that you have strong views on how we can confront the colonial hangover as African people and just as a public at large. So can you tell me about that?
Sure. So as African people, we have baggage. As Black people, even here in the United States, there's baggage. The thing is, as Africans, we are very vocal about how we feel about what the Europeans did to Africa, and it was, I mean, it was terrible. And we're still struggling from remnants of that because they stripped Africans of their identity in ways that we're still seeing the repercussion today. People rejecting their Blackness. They feel they have to bleach their skin to be loved. They think lighter skin is better than darker skin. We have all kinds of brokenness that we have to deal with. Now that's the facts. Those are facts. Those are things we cannot deny. We also have situations where resources were looted and are still being looted to this day. Those are facts. The question is, how much longer are we going to complain about it? At what point do we say, we've been on this colonial bandwagon, what's done is done, Africa has been raped, our people have been stripped of their identity, now what? Now what is no longer, well, I don't want to wait for somebody to repair something for me. I don't want to wait for someone to come and say, oh my gosh, I know I killed your people, I did committed genocide, so I'm going to give you some more money. I don't want to wait for some aid that never gets to the places or people where it needs to. I want us to actually take a moment and say, okay, we've been through this. We've gone through the hangover. We cannot keep hanging on the problem for another generation. Now we need to confront the problem with solutions. Now we need to start saying, do we have the capacity to start businesses? Let's start businesses. Do we have the capacity to prepare our children for a brighter future by properly educating them? Let's be strategic about that. Let's come together and work towards things that prepare us to be even more powerful and more self-sufficient in the future. The more we stare at the rear view mirror, the more distracted we are. I think it's time for us to acknowledge the ills of the past, and where corrections can be done from the system or through legislation. Yes, let's pursue that, but that should not be our only recourse. Let's not be the people that just keep crying about what went wrong. Let's be, and I've seen a lot of that happening this year, actually, after the Black Lives Movement. It was just incredible to see so many more people starting businesses, supporting Black businesses. It's incredible. And that's the direction we need to be going. We need to be looking at Tyler Perry, who said, okay, you don't embrace my kind. I'll open a studio that embraces every kind, not just my kind, on the terms that I believe that we need to live in. So that's the kind of shift that I think we need to be doing to overcome the colonial hangover. Is we need to be intentional, strategic about building our futures.
And tell me, what's your greatest hope for the African Vibes magazine, and what do you think has been the biggest impact of the magazine since it started?
Well, my hope is, I know through African Vibes, we've done events, we've done different things that have had people discover and actually embrace the contemporary African culture. That's one thing. But what we've been doing, and we've started doing more of now, and we have some really good plans for next year, is we've started conversations. We're now starting conversations where we, not just as Africans, but people interested in Africa's rising, we need to start talking about how do we move forward. And we're going to be making it even more intentional in the coming year, where we not only talk about how we move forward, we look at what actions we can take to make the right kind of forward movement, not the kind where we sit and we say what's wrong, but the kind where we can look at what kind of influence can we have to move the needle for people of color, so that we're progressing in the right direction. We're no longer looking for someone to solve or come intervene in the crisis that we encounter in shaping our future. We become the drivers of our own future, the narrators of our own story.
And my final question for you is, what do you hope is your legacy when you look back on your business and personal life? What do you hope that people reflect upon when they remember you?
That's a great question. I confront that question constantly. My hope is that at the end of my life, when people think about me, they would see me as someone who contributed in creating an African dream, creating a narrative that people could look at and say, here is who we are, here is this is our African identity. And I don't think it's something I could do alone, but my dream is I want to be a key contributor in Africa's new chapter, in the story we tell ourselves. But that's just to scratch the surface. I think the biggest part for me would be that I would love to impact youth, especially young Black youth, whether it's in the United States or in Africa, so they know that they can actually be drivers into the future. The future is theirs, and they can change that narrative because they have the power to do so.
Bill, I want to thank you for a compelling and interesting conversation this afternoon. I certainly learned a lot about African culture and its important impact. So I want to thank you for your time and for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate being on your show.
Fantastic, Bill. Thank